Most people over 60 are told the same thing about their memory. Eat a balanced diet, stay active, and hope for the best. It sounds sensible, it sounds safe. But here's what nobody tells you. A balanced diet alone does not protect the thinking, remembering, decision-making brain that keeps you living independently in your own home. Consider this. Your brain is about 2% of your body weight, yet it demands close to 20% of the oxygen and the fuel your body takes in every single day. Memory clinics see the same quiet pattern every week. Older adults whose plates have almost no color on them from breakfast to dinner. Over the next few minutes, I am going to give you 5 colorful foods that quietly feed an aging brain. I will give you the exact amounts, the timing, and the one thing about them that a short appointment never has time to cover. The number 1 item on this list is something almost nobody talks about. Stay with me until the end, because that one can change how you approach the next 10 years. Here is the problem with the way this is handled today. The average appointment runs about 12 minutes. In those 12 minutes, your doctor has to check your blood pressure, review your medication list, look at your latest labs, and answer whatever you walked in with. Nutrition for the aging brain is simply not on that list. That is not because your doctor does not care. It is because there is no room in a 12-minute visit for a conversation that takes 20 minutes to do properly. So you get 2 words instead: eat healthy. I want to be clear about something before we go further. I am not here to sell you a supplement or scare you into a course. This channel exists to give you the science a 12-minute appointment never has time to cover. Everything on this list is ordinary food you can buy this week in an ordinary grocery store. And the stakes here are not abstract. A brain that stays sharp is what lets you drive yourself to your own appointments, manage your own money, and take your own medication on the right day. Losing that is what actually moves people out of their homes, far more often than a bad knee ever does. Before we start, tell me in the comments how old you are and what city you are watching from. I read those, and they shape what I cover next. Now, here is the one mechanism behind everything on this list. Your brain does not run on one big artery. It runs on a dense web of microscopic blood vessels, and those vessels are where aging shows up first. With time, they stiffen and narrow, and the fatty tissue around them oxidizes, which is a slow chemical process most of us would simply call rust. Think of your brain as a city. The highways are fine, but the deliveries that matter happen on the smallest side streets. When those side streets rust, narrow, and fill with debris, the trucks still run. They just arrive late. That lateness is what a person feels as a name that will not come, or a word sitting just out of reach. The deep colors in plants are the plant's own anti-rust coating, and when you eat them, they go to work on your side streets. Please do not skip this section. It is the key to everything that follows, because every food on this list works through those small vessels and that rusting process. If this is already making sense to you, tap the like button so more seniors can find it. Now let us start the countdown at number 5. Number 5 is the beet. Not beet-flavored anything, not a powder from a late-night advertisement, the actual root, cooked or juiced. Beets are unusually high in dietary nitrate. Your body converts that nitrate into nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is the signal that tells a blood vessel to relax and open. Remember those narrow side streets in your brain. Nitric oxide is the road crew that widens them for a few hours after you eat. That is not a theory. It is measurable. Researchers at Wake Forest University gave older adults beetroot juice and then imaged blood flow inside the brain. They found increased flow to the frontal lobe, the region you use for planning, judgment, and finding the right word. Here is the protocol. 1 cup of cooked beets, or 4 to 8 ounces of pure beetroot juice, 3 to 4 times a week. Take it in the late morning or early afternoon, roughly 90 minutes before you walk, drive, or do anything mentally demanding, because that is when nitric oxide peaks. Buy them pre-cooked and vacuum sealed if peeling is hard on your hands. The mistake people make is buying pickled beets in a jar and counting those. Heavy vinegar and salt change the picture, and if you watch your blood pressure, that sodium works against you. 2 safety notes. Beets can turn your urine pink or red for a day, and that is harmless. But if it continues past 2 days, it is not the beets and you should call your doctor. If you take blood pressure medication or a nitrate medication for your heart, talk to your doctor before you add beet juice daily because the effects can stack. And if you feel lightheaded standing up after starting this, cut the amount in half. That is your stop condition. Pair your beets with something rich in vitamin C, half a red bell pepper or a squeeze of lemon. Vitamin C protects nitric oxide from breaking down too quickly in the bloodstream. The pairing simply keeps the window of open vessels wider for longer. But opening the road only solves half the problem. If the tissue those trucks deliver to is still rusting, wider streets will not save it. The next food does something beets cannot touch. It protects the fat your brain is actually built from. Number 4 is the cooked tomato. Cooked, not raw. And in a moment, I will tell you exactly why that word matters. Roughly 60% of the dry weight of your brain is fat. That is not a flaw. It is the insulation wrapped around every wire you think with. Fat is also the tissue most vulnerable to oxidation, the rusting we talked about. Lycopene, the pigment that makes a tomato deep red, dissolves into fat and settles inside those membranes like a rust inhibitor painted onto bare metal. Heat breaks the tomato's cell walls open, which is why cooked tomatoes deliver several times more usable lycopene than raw ones. Large population studies, including long-running research from Finland, found that people with higher blood levels of lycopene had a meaningfully lower rate of stroke in the years that followed. Stroke and memory decline travel the very same small vessel road. Here is the protocol. Half a cup of cooked tomato, 3 to 5 times a week. That can be tomato sauce, canned crushed tomatoes simmered for 10 minutes, or tomato paste stirred into a soup. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste is the most concentrated form on the shelf, and the cheapest way to do this. Always cook it with a teaspoon of olive oil, because lycopene without fat mostly passes straight through you. The mistake is 1 raw slice on a sandwich, which gives you a small fraction of what a cooked half cup does. If you have reflux, and many people over 70 do, tomatoes can be a problem. Use the smaller amount. Take it earlier in the day and never within 3 hours of lying down. If you get burning in your chest or throat after starting this, stop and lean on the greens instead. And choose no salt-added canned tomatoes if you are watching your blood pressure. Pair cooked tomato with olive oil and a turn of black pepper. The fat carries the lycopene across your gut wall and can roughly double how much you absorb. This is exactly why a simple tomato sauce beats any pill advertising the same pigment. Keep number 1 in the back of your mind while we go, because it is the only food on this list whose pigment has been found inside brain tissue itself. So now you are opening the vessels and protecting the insulation. But there is a filter sitting in your eye and in your memory centers that neither of those foods touches. Number 3 is the food that rebuilds it. Number 3 is dark leafy greens, and specifically spinach, kale, and collard greens. 1 serving a day, and I will tell you exactly what 1 serving looks like in a moment. These greens carry a pigment called lutein. Lutein is yellow, and it hides underneath all that green. Your body does something remarkable with it. It concentrates lutein in the retina of your eye and in the memory regions of your brain. Think of a pair of tinted glasses installed inside your own tissue, filtering the harshest light and the harshest chemistry before it ever reaches the delicate parts. These greens also carry folate and vitamin K1, which your brain uses to build and maintain the fatty coating on nerve cells. Researchers at Rush University in Chicago followed roughly 960 older adults for about 5 years. Those eating 1 to 2 servings of green leafy vegetables a day held the cognitive scores of people roughly 11 years younger. Here is the protocol. 1 serving every day, and 1 serving is 1 cup raw or half a cup cooked. Cook it more often than you eat it raw, because a light sauté in olive oil for 3 to 4 minutes releases far more lutein than a cold salad ever will. Frozen chopped spinach works just as well as fresh and costs less, and about 1/3 of a standard bag is a serving. Attach it to the same meal every day so it stops being a decision, and most people succeed with lunch. The mistake is iceberg lettuce, which is pale, watery, and carries almost none of this. One important safety point. Green leafy vegetables are high in vitamin K1, and vitamin K interacts with warfarin, a common blood thinner. If you take warfarin, do not stop eating greens and do not suddenly double them. Keep your intake steady week to week and tell your doctor you are being consistent, because consistency is what they actually want from you. And if chewing is difficult, blend cooked greens into a soup rather than skipping them altogether. Pair your greens with a fat source, half an avocado, a tablespoon of olive oil, or a boiled egg on the side. Lutein is fat soluble, and absorption roughly triples when fat is present in the same meal. Greens with plain vinegar and no oil is the most common way people waste this food entirely. Filtering and building are one job, but every one of these processes depends on power, and inside every brain cell sit tiny power plants that get dirty with age. Number 2 is the food that helps clean them out. Number 2 is the pomegranate. The seeds, or 100% pomegranate juice, never a cocktail blend with added sugar. Pomegranate is loaded with compounds called L-gitannins. Your gut bacteria convert them into a molecule called urolithin A. Inside each of your cells sit thousands of mitochondria, the tiny power plants that make the energy your neurons run on. As you age, damaged power plants pile up and stop being cleared away, like broken machinery left standing on a factory floor. Urolithin A appears to help the cell call in its own cleanup crew, hauling out the broken units so the working ones have room to run. Research teams at the University of California, Los Angeles ran small trials giving older adults with mild memory complaints pomegranate juice daily. They reported better verbal memory scores and changes in brain activity on imaging compared with a placebo drink. These were small studies, so I will be honest with you, this one is promising rather than settled. Here's the protocol. Half a cup, 4 ounces of 100% pomegranate juice daily, or half a cup of fresh seeds. Take it with a meal rather than on an empty stomach, because the acidity is hard on some older stomachs. If you buy the juice, the ingredient list should say pomegranate juice and nothing else. The mistake is drinking a full 16-ounce bottle, which is around 30 grams of sugar you do not need. Half a cup is the dose, and more is not better here. 2 cautions, and please take this one seriously. Pomegranate, much like grapefruit, can interfere with how your liver processes certain medications, including some statins and some blood pressure drugs. If you take either one, ask your pharmacist about pomegranate juice before you make it a daily habit, because that single question takes 2 minutes. And if you have diabetes, use the seeds instead of the juice, because the fiber slows the sugar down. Pair pomegranate with protein or fat, and plain yogurt is close to ideal. That slows sugar absorption and gives your gut bacteria a better environment to produce urolithin A. A 10-minute walk after that meal helps as well, because muscle contraction and mitochondrial cleanup share the same signals. So we have opened the vessels, protected the insulation, rebuilt the filter, and cleaned the power plants. Every one of those things happens around your brain cells or inside their machinery. Number 1 is different, because it is the only food on this list whose pigment has been found inside brain tissue itself, doing the talking for you. Number 1 is the wild blueberry. Frozen wild blueberries specifically, and I am going to explain why the small ones beat the big ones. That deep blue-purple color comes from pigments called anthocyanins. Here's what makes them different from everything else we have covered today. Most food compounds do their work in the bloodstream, on the outside of the brain's defenses. Anthocyanins and their breakdown products have been found in brain tissue itself, concentrated in the hippocampus, the small seahorse-shaped structure where new memories are formed. In other words, they cross the border. Think of it this way. Every other food on this list improves the roads and the power supply to the building. This one walks into the building and talks to the workers, nudging cells to produce more of the growth factor that keeps connections between neurons alive. And it improves blood flow at the same time, so it does both jobs at once. This is one of the better studied foods in the entire field. Teams at the University of Cincinnati and at Tufts University have run randomized trials in older adults with early memory complaints, giving daily wild blueberry powder or juice for 12 to 16 weeks. They measured improvements in word recall and memory task performance compared with placebo, along with changes in brain blood flow on imaging. Now the protocol, and this is the most important minute of this video: 1 cup of frozen wild blueberries every single day. Wild, not cultivated, because wild berries are smaller, and smaller means more skin per cup, and the pigment lives in the skin. Cup for cup, wild blueberries carry roughly twice the anthocyanins of the large cultivated kind. Frozen is not a compromise. They are frozen within a day of picking, and the pigment holds up better than fresh berries that traveled for a week to reach you. Timing matters more than people expect, so eat them in the morning with breakfast. The effects on blood flow and alertness show up within 2 to 6 hours, and you want that window landing on your active day, not while you are asleep. Do not bake them into a muffin, because heat above roughly 350 degrees destroys a good share of the anthocyanins. Thaw a cup overnight in the refrigerator, or run them under cool water for a minute and eat them as they are. And here is the progression. Start with half a cup daily for the first week, then move up to a full cup, because a sudden jump in fiber and polyphenols can upset a stomach that is not used to it. The mistake almost everyone makes is treating this as a 2-week experiment, when the trials that showed real change ran 12 weeks or longer, so give it 3 months before you judge it. Now the safety side, and there are 3 things to know. First, if you take warfarin or another blood thinner, 1 cup a day is fine for nearly everyone. But tell your doctor you have added it and keep the amount steady instead of swinging up and down. Second, if you have diabetes, 1 cup of whole berries is about 15 grams of carbohydrate, which fits most plans, but check your morning number for the first week and bring that reading to your doctor. Third, if dentures or dental work make skins uncomfortable, blend the cup into plain yogurt rather than eating them whole. Your stop condition is simple. If you get persistent stomach upset or loose stools after a few days at the full cup, drop back to half a cup, because that is your body telling you the pace is too fast. And never stop or change a prescription for this or for anything else you hear on the internet, including for me. Now the pairing, and this one matters more than any other on the list. Eat your cup of wild blueberries alongside a protein source, plain Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a couple of eggs. Protein blunts the small rise in blood sugar, and a steadier sugar curve is itself protective for the small vessels we talked about at the start. And if you are able, walk for 10 minutes within an hour of eating them, because the movement opens those vessels and the pigment travels farther. Now, I told you at the very beginning that number 1 was something almost nobody talks about, and here is exactly what I meant. When people hear blueberries, they hear a tired phrase from a magazine, and they skip right past it. What they never hear is the detail that makes it work, that it must be wild, that it must be a full cup, that it must be daily in the morning, and that it must run for 3 months before you judge anything. Blueberries, once in a while, are a snack. 1 cup of wild blueberries every morning for 3 months is a protocol. Memory is not luck. Clarity is not genetics. A well-fed brain is built. Consider a typical case documented in the rehabilitation and nutrition literature. A 74-year-old woman, living alone, still driving, but starting to worry about herself. She was losing names in the middle of a sentence, and she had begun writing herself notes for things she never used to write down. Her plate, in her own words, was beige: toast, chicken, potatoes, and a cookie in the evening. Her doctor examined her, found nothing alarming, and told her this was normal aging. She changed 5 things and nothing else. 1 cup of wild blueberries every morning with plain Greek yogurt. Half a cup of cooked spinach at lunch with a teaspoon of olive oil. Tomato sauce with 3 dinners a week, and cooked beets twice a week. Half a cup of pomegranate juice with dinner, cleared with her pharmacist first because she was on a statin. At 12 weeks, the first change she reported was not memory at all. It was that her afternoons had stopped feeling foggy. By 4 months, her daughter noticed she was finishing her sentences again and had quietly stopped writing the notes. On a standard word recall test at her next visit, she recalled 3 more words than she had the year before. That is not a miracle, and it is not a cure. It is what happens when a brain finally receives the raw materials it has been asking for. So here is exactly what to do, and I want you to start tonight. 5 steps, and every one of them has a number in it, so there is nothing left to guess. Step 1. Tonight, before bed, put 1 cup of frozen wild blueberries in a bowl in the refrigerator to thaw for breakfast. That takes 30 seconds, and it is the single highest value thing on this list. Step 2. Tomorrow at lunch, cook half a cup of frozen chopped spinach in 1 teaspoon of olive oil. 3 minutes in a pan is all it needs. Step 3. This week, buy 3 things: a bag of frozen wild blueberries, a tube or can of tomato paste, and a package of pre-cooked beets. In most stores, that is under $15 for the whole week. Step 4. This week, make 2 dinners that each include half a cup of cooked tomato with 1 teaspoon of olive oil. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste stirred into a soup counts. Step 5. Before you add daily pomegranate juice or daily beet juice, ask your pharmacist 1 question. Do these interact with my medications? That call takes 2 minutes, and for some of you, it is the most important step here. Do those 5 and you have covered all 5 foods inside a single week on an ordinary budget with no supplements. Think of someone in your life who has started repeating themselves, or who has quietly stopped cooking real meals for themselves. It may be a parent, a spouse, or a neighbor you look in on. Send them this video, because everything in it costs less than 1 week of takeout and asks almost nothing of them. Tell me in the comments which of these you are starting tonight. Your answers decide exactly what I cover next. And if you want the science that a 12-minute appointment never has room for, subscribe to this channel, because giving you that is the only reason it exists. This video is education, not a diagnosis. Your own doctor knows your history, so bring this list to your next appointment. I'm Bennett Thorne. Don't forget to subscribe and live longer.